What is up, guys? Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are going to be taking a much closer look at a weapon that's getting a lot of attention since it was added into Destiny 2 with Season of Arrivals. People are calling this the RECLUSE 2.0. Is that really the case? Well, let's find out and let's get started. But first things first, if you're looking to upgrade your setup, if you're looking to get some banging headphones, thanks to my partnership with ASTRO, all you gotta do is click the link in the description down below. That's gonna automatically apply a discount code, allowing you to save money on some amazing products and help the channel out. That's the definition of a win-win right there. Alright, now let's get started, and the weapon we're looking at today is the Death Adder submachine gun. Seriously, I am not making up the RECLUSE 2.0 thing. I have heard this on Twitter, like the clan chat has been popping up. Oh my goodness, does anyone want to farm the cube encounter to get the RECLUSE, the new RECLUSE? And everyone's like, yeah dude, me. Like, what is going on here? Is the comparison to one of the most powerful guns in Destiny history really warranted with this new SMG? And why are people making this comparison? Well, I think it's very important to state that this replacement, so to speak, is not voluntary. People aren't looking at this as better than the RECLUSE. They're looking at this as potentially what to use when the RECLUSE gets sunset, when, with the fall expansion, it's no longer going to be able to be infused past its current maximum light level, and therefore will not be a viable choice within endgame activities. So again, people aren't saying that this is better than the RECLUSE. They're saying that, well, when I'm no longer able to use the RECLUSE, this is the next best option in the game currently. And why are they making this comparison? Well, most importantly, the Death Adder belongs to the exact same weapon archetype. It's a 900 rounds per minute SMG, which is very potent up close. If you are someone who has and uses the RECLUSE, you know you don't even necessarily need that damage bonus it provides to gun down red bars in close range very efficiently. So it's pretty natural to have a weapon that's going away and look at another weapon within that same archetype. We also have some perk similarities with the Death Adder, and it does occupy the same space. Both the RECLUSE and the Death Adder are elemental weapons. But let's take a closer look at the stats and perks of the Death Adder. Now, stats-wise, and you can see when we compare these weapons, it's not particularly close. The RECLUSE, being a pinnacle weapon, has much better stats, but the Death Adders, for its archetype, certainly aren't worse than normal. Now, in its perk pool, we actually do have a lot of good choices. You have the full assortment of barrels, steady rounds are here if you want more stability, accurized rounds are here if you want more range. Then you also have a bunch of magazine extending perks for PvE potentially. Now in that first perk slot, things get interesting. We do have notably Feeding Frenzy. Each rapid kill with this weapon progressively increases reload speed for a short time. Now this is very important because the RECLUSE also has Feeding Frenzy, another similarity. We do have some alternatives. My roll actually came with dynamic sway reduction, which improves accuracy and stability while continuously holding down the trigger. Subsistence is, I think, underrated, but a great PvE perk nonetheless. Then in that second perk category, we don't have really anything to increase the damage of this weapon like the RECLUSE, but the thing that most people are going to is Dragonfly. And that right there, a Death Adder with some great stat increasing perks and then Feeding Frenzy plus Dragonfly is what people are, from what I'm seeing, mainly going towards when they're referencing the RECLUSE 2.0. That is the perceived God Roll for this weapon. However, there are some alternatives. Disruption Break is actually pretty good with a primary providing a damage boost to kinetic weapons, so break a shield with a Death Adder, switch to a kinetic shotgun, and go to town with a 50% damage bonus. Not to mention, rangefinder and moving target are excellent for PvP, and the PvP role of accurized rounds plus dynamic sway reduction plus rangefinder, or potentially quick draw or moving target, that is a whole nother topic a lot of people are overlooking. That's actually a pretty disgusting SMG roll for the Crucible, so just keep that in mind. But in this video, we're mainly focusing on that perceived God Roll, the perceived Recluse replacement. Now, again, my roll, I have Dynamic Sway Reduction plus Dragonfly, and I really do like Dynamic with this type of SMG. It makes up for the fact that the actual Recluse does have vastly superior stats and is much easier to use. Like the current Recluse, even though it's a close range SMG, it can reach out to medium range easily to deal with enemies. So Dynamic Sway Reduction kind of lets you emulate that somewhat. Now, of course, the reload speed suffers because of that, and to make up for it, I put on a couple of enhanced reload mods on my armor. But remember, like, everyone pretty much knows what Feeding Frenzy does. Like, it's not really a surprise at this point, even though it was somewhat altered and nerfed within this season. Really, the question is Dragonfly. Like, is Dragonfly a good enough perk to warrant these comparisons? Is Dragonfly anywhere near as good as the final pinnacle perk of the Recluse? Well, let's take a look at the Recluse and remind ourselves just why that thing was so powerful. Well, first off, you have, frankly, shockingly good stats and some great first perks. Then, of course, you do have that Feeding Frenzy perk, and then we have Master of Arms. Kills with any weapon improve this weapon's damage for a short time. Now, eventually this did have to be nerfed, mainly for PvP considerations, so it's not even as good as it once was, and it's still cracked beyond belief. Here's the thing though, the damage bonus it provided wasn't higher than other damage increasing perks in the game. It was right in line with Kill Clip, Rampage, etc. Now, pre-nerf, it did up the body shot damage to a ridiculous amount, as if you were hitting critical shots, but even post-nerf, when it's, right in line with other perks, it's still vastly superior. And the reason it's superior, because it's not the damage, it's the ease of activation. Any kill with any gun is gonna trigger Master of Arms, including kills with the Recluse itself. It's kind of like Rampage, but if Rampage was ramped up to 1 billion in terms of ease of use. And that ease of use means that with the Recluse, after you get just one kill, again with anything, you are starting to engage every single enemy with Master of Arms active. So 95-99% of your engagements include that damage boost. So it's almost like you're using an SMG that just has plus 30-ish% more damage all the time. And that right there is why the Recluse is so potent. Now with the Death Adder, Dragonfly is very, very different. We're not talking about a damage boost at all. Instead, we're talking about the ability to get a precision kill on one enemy, and then that enemy will blow up and damage other nearby enemies. Importantly, when you are dealing with a weapon with Dragonfly, it's one of the actually pretty rare now perks that has a mod that can coincide it, the Dragonfly Spec mod, which actually substantially increases the power of Dragonfly. If you have a weapon with Dragonfly, you probably should be using Dragonfly Spec. And the fact of the matter is, when Dragonfly works, it works very well, and it's quite a visceral thing when it goes off. You'll get a headshot kill, and that will blow up and kill, 2 or 3 or more enemies nearby, and you're thinking, wow, that would have taken a lot longer if I had another weapon. Or they're substantially damaged if not killed, and then they're very easy to pick off with another precision shot, which causes another explosion. Like, when you can start popping off on a group of red bars with Dragonfly, it clears a room like no other, especially when you do have an encounter that's throwing a ton of red bars at you. Like, there's just a ton of Taken Thralls all charging you, and then you can basically kill 1 or 2 and deal with all of them. That experience makes Dragonfly seem like a very good perk, and I'm not saying it's not a pretty darn good perk. However, there is a significant downside, and that is Dragonfly does absolutely nothing to the enemy you're first engaging. It only starts to matter when you get that first kill, and then you can start popping off and damaging other enemies. Whereas Master of Arms, you could kind of say the same thing, but that damage boost, as I've said, is always active. The damage boost helps you deal with a singleton target. Dragonfly kind of only matters after the fact, after you've dealt with that singleton target, and Dragonfly is a lot less impactful against anything other than just trash mobs. If you're dealing with a knight, if you're dealing with any sort of yellow bar, besides the scenario where you kind of kill all the thralls around that yellow bar and then you can engage them when they've already taken a bit of damage from Dragonfly, it really doesn't matter. Whereas you'd much rather have some sort of damage boost. Kill a thrall, reload, get kill clip, and then deal with that yellow bar. That's going to be much more efficient than anything involving Dragonfly. That is why, honestly, I don't feel like the Death Adder with the Feeding Frenzy plus Dragonfly roll should be looked at as the Recluse 2.0. Just because it exists within the same archetype, I think what made the Recluse good was that damage boost. And Dragonfly, it's just not quite in that same ballpark. You can't use it for those same applications that you're used to using the Recluse in, right? You would be much better off with Rampage, Swashbuckler, Kill Clip, Multi-Kill Clip. Any of those perks would offer a more similar playstyle and offer similar benefits to what the Recluse granted compared to Dragonfly. The reason people, I think, are jumping on this bandwagon is just because the Death Adder is kind of all we have in terms of 900 RPM SMGs to farm for right now. But if you look just outside of the 900 RPMs, you have some alternatives. Something that isn't in the game just yet, but is coming later this season, is the RECLUSE SMG. Now, if we look at the stats here, this belongs to the 750 rounds per minute SMG archetype, with a very great range because of that. Now, the stability definitely needs work, but you can kind of mold all of the different, perks around it to help with that stability. Now, if we look at its random rolls, we have the usual assortment of barrels. Then we have in the second perk column a bunch of extended mag perks to help with the kind of low 30 round magazine. We then have accurized rounds and steady rounds again. Steady rounds is going to be fantastic here. But we also have Seraph rounds, an extremely unique perk that makes your bullets over-penetrate targets so you can shoot enemies through other enemies and bounce off surfaces. It's kind of like armor penetrating and ricochet rounds rolled into one, and it provides a secret range bonus as well, so that's a consideration too. Then in the first perk slot, we have dynamic sway reduction again, but we also do have subsistence. I think that's very good, and with an SMG like this, because it takes less shots to kill, it does more damage because it's of a higher damage archetype, subsistence is going to be much better here than it would be on the Death Adder. Combine that with, in the second perk column, just a lot better choices than Dragonfly, honestly. Vorpal Weapon is going to provide a damage bonus to pretty much anything of major and above. We also have Demolitionist, which is what I am definitely going to go for. Demolitionist is such a good perk, and being able to use your grenades so much more often and also instantly reload your weapon for throwing your grenade is super good. Disruption Break is back as well, but importantly, we also have Surrounded. I've talked about how a damage boost actually matters, and Surrounded provides one that's pretty easy to activate with an SMG. You're going to be surrounded quite a lot when you're in close quarters. And similar to Firefly, Surrounded is one of the few perks that has Surrounded spec attached to it to make it even more powerful. In my opinion, the RECLUSE SMG with Subsistence plus Surrounded or Demolitionist or even Vorpal is going to come closer to a weapon that truly can rival the Recluse in terms of what it's capable of doing than a Feeding Frenzy Firefly Death Adder. You just have to be willing to go out of that original damage archetype. Or another alternative is 600 RPM autos. We have the new Forward Path, and we also have the kind of reissued Gnawing Hunger that have incredible PvE rolls. Yeah, they're not going to be an SMG, but it's not like a 600 RPM auto can't deal with enemies up close either. So consider looking at those as well. At the end of the day, the Death Adder God Roll is very good at normal level play. It's very good at clearing out trash mobs, but if you try to do anything of higher level, if you try to use it in the end game, because it doesn't get any sort of damage boost from Firefly, I think it does somewhat fall behind, and I would rather have other weapons at my side. That's what I think. Let me know what you guys think. Do you have a Death Adder roll that absolutely slaps? Are you loving it? Are you liking other alternatives? Let me know in the comment section down below. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, found it informative, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.